Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha. Jaya Girivaradhari. Jaya Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha. Jaya Girivaradhari. Jaya Girivaradhari. Jaya Yashodanandana. Jaya Vrndesa Ranjana. Jaya Yashodanandana. Jaya Vrndesa Ranjana. Jaya Yamuna Tiravana Chari. Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Yamuna Tiravana Chari. Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava. Jaya Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotra Shri Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai and the Gaudiya Vaishnavavrinda ki jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai Prem se kaho jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta ki jai Grantharaj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo. All glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories Shri Guru Gauranga, all glories Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 16, entitled King Chitraketu Meets the Lord, and verse number 9. Esha nityo vyayah sukshma Esha sarvashraya swadrik Atmamaya guner vishwam Atmanam srijate prabhu Esha nityo vyayah sukshma Esha sarvashraya swadrik Atmamaya guner vishwam Atmanam srijate prabhu Esha nityo vyaya sukshma Esha sarvashraya swadrik Atmamaya guner vishwam Atmanam srijate prabhu. Atmanam srijate prabhu. Esha nityo vaya sukshma. Esha sarvashraya swadrik. Atmamaya guner vishwam. Atmanam srijate prabhu. Mataji. Esha nityo vyaya sukshma. Esha sarvashraya swadrik. Atmamaya guner vishwam. Atmanam srijate Prabhu. Esha nityo vyaya sukshma. Esha sarvashraya swadrik. Atma maya guner vishwam. Atmanam srijate Prabhu. Esha, this living entity, Nityaha, eternal, Avyayaha, imperishable, Sukshmaha, very, very fine, not seen by the material eyes. Eshaha, this living entity. Sarva Ashrayaha, the cause of different types of bodies. Swadrik, self-effulgent. Atmamaya Gunaihi, by the Supreme Personality of Godhead's modes of material nature. Vishwam, this material world. Atmanam, himself. Srijate, appears. Prabhu, the master. Translation, the living entity is eternal and imperishable because he actually has no beginning and no end. He never takes birth or dies. He is the basic principle of all types of bodies, yet he does not belong to the bodily category. The living being is so sublime that he is equal in quality to the Supreme Lord. Nonetheless, because he is extremely small, he is prone to be illusioned by the external energy, and thus he creates various bodies for himself according to his different desires. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In this verse, the philosophy of Achintya Bheda, simultaneous oneness and difference is described. The living entity is eternal, Nitya, like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the difference is that the Supreme Lord is the greatest and no one being equal to or greater than him. Whereas the living entity is Sukshma, or extremely small. The Shastra describes that the magnitude of the living entity is 1/10,000 the size of the tip of a hair. The Supreme Lord is all-pervading, Andantarastha Paramanu Chayantarastham. Relatively, if the living entity is accepted as the smallest, there should naturally be inquiry about the greatest. The greatest is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the smallest is the living entity. Another peculiar characteristics of the jiva is that he becomes covered by maya, atma maya gunaihi. He is prone to being covered by the Supreme Lord's illusory energy. The living entity is responsible for his conditional life in the material world, and therefore is described as Prabhu, the master. If he likes, he can come to the material world, and if he likes, he can return home back to Godhead. Because he wanted to enjoy this material world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead gave him a material body through the agency of the material energy, as the Lord himself says in Bhagavad Gita 18:61, Ishara sarva bhutanam Vrndesa arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarva bhutani yandrarudhani maya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjun, and is directing the wandering of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of this material energy. The Supreme Lord gives the living entity a chance to enjoy this material world as he desires, but he openly expresses his own desire that the living entity give up all material aspirations, fully surrender unto him, and return home back to Godhead. The living entity is the smallest Sukshma. Jiva Goswami says in this connection that the living entity within the body is extremely difficult for materialistic scientists to find, although we understand from authorities that the living entity is within the body. The body is different from the living entity. Om Ajnanatibirantasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्युतं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे भूतैर्महाद्भिर्यैमा पुरो विभु निर्मायश्येते यदमूष पुरुष भुङ्क्ते गुणान् षोडशात्मक सोऽलङ्कृशिष्ट भगवान् वचांसि मे। Hare Krishna. Here the living entity continues to speak, preach to his father, mother, and all queens assembled there. As we described a couple of days back, this living entity is not really speaking. What happened? Narada Muni entered the body of this dead child and he started preaching to King Chitraketu. So Narada Muni is very powerful to do that. So here the living entity is speaking about the eternal and imperishable nature of the soul. So here Bhagavad Gita 2nd chapter is starting here. So this is what we need to hear and this is what we need to preach in the beginning. What is that? There is something like a soul. There is something different from the material body. And this is the beginning and we have to repeatedly hear this because we are very forgetful by nature. So we hear that and then we again forget. Srila Prabhupada, even in his last days, he spoke this philosophy. When devotees were lamenting, seeing the health condition of Srila Prabhupada, they were crying. So Srila Prabhupada spoke that there is no death. So he brought the teachings from the very beginning of Bhagavad Gita. So this is very important and this is not just the beginning philosophy, but it is a very deeper understanding. That's why Srila Prabhupada begins the purport saying that this verse is describing Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. So what is Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva? It can look very simple, but it is very deep. There are many kinds of philosophies, even within Vaishnavism. One philosophy is describing Dvaitavad. Dvaita. What is Dvaita? Meaning two. Dvaita means two. Who are two? No. Here Dvaitavad is not body and the soul. Yes, that is Dvaita, definitely. Soul and super soul or soul and Krishna. They are different. Who emphasized this? Śrīla Madhvacharya. Śrīla Madhvacharya emphasized this Dvaitavad. So this is very important. The reason is, in Dvaitavad, all the distinctions are delineated very clearly. So, Madhvacharya described that there are differences. One, there is difference between Jiva and Bhagavan. There is difference between soul and super soul. So that is one difference, right? Then what else is there other than Jiva and the super soul or Bhagavan? Who else is there in this world? Bhagavan, yeah. Jiva and Bhagavan is there. What else is there in this world? Tell me, we are there, Lord is there. What else is there? Yes, but that's also Jiva or empowered Jiva. But categorically, as a Tattva, what else is there? Material nature, right? So, Madhvacharya analyzed different Tattvas very clearly. So he said, okay, there is Jiva, there is Supreme Lord, and there is material energy. So he said, first we understand there is difference between Jiva and the Supreme Lord. Then also understand there is Jiva and there is difference between Jiva and the material energy. Because we can see the body and the soul as it is described here. Then understand there is difference between the Lord and the material energy. Correct? Then he told there is difference between Jiva and Jiva. Yes or no? There is difference between one living entity and another living entity. Correct? Do you find any difference between Jiva and Jiva? Yes, there are differences. Even having this material body, there are differences. But on the platform of soul, there are differences. Of course, we are all Sachidananda, not in terms of quality, but the desires are different. How they look different. How they serve the Lord is different. So, there is difference between Jiva and Jiva. Similarly, he told there is difference between one manifestation of matter and another manifestation of matter. Correct? Because here I have a microphone, there is a mobile phone in front of me. There is a difference. Both are matter, but there is difference. So Madhvacharya emphasized the difference. So it is, we have Pancha Tattva. So this is Pancha Bheda Tattva, the five kinds of differences. So he emphasized so much the differences because he was trying to counteract the Advaitavad. So that is the one which came about before all this. And this Advaitavad is by Shankaracharya. What is Advaitavad? There is no difference between exactly Jiva or us and the Supreme Lord. Which is not right. Right? We all know there is difference, right? If there is no difference, why are we here? Why are we suffering? So that is Advaitavad. So even though Shankaracharya presented Advaitavad, he himself knew that this is not right. Why did he present this Advaitavad? For the benefit of some living entities who wants to go away from Krishna. So those who wanted to be in illusion, for them he spoke this philosophy. It's not that he was in illusion, but by the arrangement of the Lord, as ordained by the Lord, Shankaracharya spoke Advaita philosophy. And then Ramanujacharya, he spoke Vishishtadvaita. Vishishtadvaita means qualified oneness, qualified monism. So he accepted, okay, there are some kind of differences. There are some kind of differences and some kind of individuality. So he accepted the individuality of the soul. And that's why if you read Bhagavad Gita, right in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada write this point that actually eternal means no beginning, no end. So he quotes Ramanujacharya in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita. So he says that, what is the meaning of eternal? It's very difficult to understand, right? Eternal. Do we know anything? Do we have any experience without any beginning or end of anything? Do you have any experience of anything which has no beginning, no end? Not really, because in this world we have our birth date, right? Happy birthday, right? And there is a date of death also, departure date is also there. So there is beginning and there is end. In this world, everything. The microphone is sitting here, there is a beginning date, we buy this, and one day after dropping many times, stop working. So there is a beginning, there is an end. There is a mobile phone in front of me. If you're recording, there is a beginning, there is an end. So there is a manufacturing date and there is an expiry date for everything in this world. If not, you go home or go to kitchen and see any packet. You can see food packet. There will be a big manufacturing date and expiry date. So the concept of eternality is very difficult to understand. And that's why Ramanujacharya gave an understanding. There is no beginning and there is no end. And Srila Prabhupada quotes this, and we can hear this from Bhagavatam. So Ramanujacharya, he told about, yes, we are all servants of Krishna. He emphasized that point. At the same time, he didn't emphasize so much about the difference. So when Madhvacharya came, he wanted to make sure that there shouldn't be any misconception about the relationship between the Jiva, us, and Krishna. There shouldn't be any confusion. So he presented the Pancha Bheda Tattva, meaning there are differences. Understand? There are differences. It's not just one, but there are differences. And later, there are different variations to this philosophy. But in the later time, Lord Chaitanya appeared. So one day, Lord Chaitanya was traveling in South India. And in South India, people are all about a lot of philosophies. So two big scholars were arguing. One person was telling, Advaita is right. Another person was telling, Dvaita is right. So one person was telling, the soul and the super soul are one. And another person was telling, they are different. And it was a very heated argument going on. So they were quoting Shastra, they were proving this side, others were proving the other side. So it was going back and forth. So Lord Chaitanya came there, and when they saw Lord Chaitanya, they were amazed to see the physiognomy of Lord Chaitanya. They could understand this is not a normal personality. So they asked, can you give your opinion? What did Lord Chaitanya say? Lord Chaitanya said, you are right, you are also right. He told the Advaitavadi, okay, you are right. He went to the Advaitavadi, you are also right. Then both were confused. How is it possible that both are right? Then he presented Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. So yes, we are simultaneously one and different. So the oneness is emphasized and difference is also emphasized. So this is a very deep philosophical point. Why difference is emphasized? It's very simple. Why difference is emphasized? Any idea from here? Why difference between us and Krishna is emphasized so much? We also emphasize so much. Prabhupada emphasized so much. Why?
So we can recognize the Supreme Lord.
Yes, one very important point. We can recognize the supreme position of the Supreme Lord. Then, what's the next point? That is Sambandha. Very good point. Next, what's the next point? Yeah, we are part and parcel, but why the difference is emphasized? One, we can recognize the position of Krishna. Then, after that, what do we do?
To serve the Lord.
Exactly, serve the Lord. Bhakti means service, correct? So if difference is not emphasized, what is the possibility of serving Krishna? If we are all one, then why do you have to serve? I serve myself and be happy, or try to be happy. So it doesn't work. So this difference is emphasized because without emphasizing Bheda, there is no meaning in Bhakti. So that's why there is Bhakta, there is Bhagavan, and there is Bhakti. So if there is no difference between Bhakta or devotee and Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord, then there is no meaning in Bhakti, that which is the connection. Service is the connection. So that's why the difference is so much emphasized, and we do emphasize the difference. And if we don't recognize the supreme position of the Supreme Lord, then we are offending the Lord. Bhagavatam 11 Canto, it's mentioned. If one doesn't recognize the supreme position, what happens? Sthana prashta patanti yatha. Sthana prashta. Whatever position one may have, one is going to lose that position. Sthana means the position. Brashta. Falling from that position. Sthana brashta. Loses that position. Patanti yatha. Patanti means he will fall down. So this is the reality. That's why Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, chapter 2, in the Garbhastuti, the demigods are praying to Krishna when Krishna was in the womb of Mother Devaki. So they makes a very important point that Yenye Aravindaksha Vimukta Maninaha. Yenye Aravindaksha Vimukta Maninaha Toyasta Bhavat Avishuddha Buddhaya. So, talking about Avishuddha Buddhaya. Avishuddha, what's the meaning of Avishuddha? Do you know the meaning of Shuddha? What is the meaning of Shuddha? Clean, pure. Avishuddha. What happens? Not exactly impure. Avishuddha Buddhaya. This is talking about those whose intelligence are polluted. Yenye Aravindaksha Vimukta Maninaha. Those who are intelligence is pollution, they think that they have achieved liberation. How? By practicing Jnana Yoga. So, Yenye Aravindaksha Vimukta Maninaha Toyasta Bhavat Avishuddha Buddhaya. What do? Aruhya Krichrena Parampadam. They think that they go to the supreme position by Aruhya Krichrena. Krichra means Lord of austerities. Lord of austerities. They think that they have already liberated from the material world. But what happens? They think they have gone high. Then what happens? Padanti atho, the same word, padanti, they fall down. Why do they fall down? Anadrita yushmadangrayaha. Anadrita. Adrita means all respect. Anadrita means they don't respect. Yushmat means your. Who is? The demigods are speaking to Krishna in the womb. So yushmat angrayaha. Angraya means lotus feet. Because they don't show respect to the lotus feet of Krishna, even one may consider they are making progress, still they are going to fall down. It is guaranteed. Now you can see so many spiritualists, New Age kind of spiritualists, they speak about universal oneness, love, energy, this, that, so many things. Have you heard this kind of things? They speak a lot of things, but they don't have any shelter. Please understand. That can be a good platform for us to preach Krishna consciousness, but they themselves don't have any shelter. Srila Prabhupada gave very good examples to describe shelter, which is very important. Prabhupada asked, why these spacecrafts are going, and that time the moon landing was there, why do they go to moon, and after going to the moon, why do they come back? Or why the spacecraft or the man is carried to the outer space, why do they come back? Srila Prabhupada asked this question. It's a very important question. Prabhupada said they are coming back because they couldn't find any shelter. That's the reality. They can go there, they can stay wherever, but it is not the shelter. It's a very important point. Shelter means we are sheltered, right? Then we are comfortable. Otherwise, it's not the real shelter. One time, Srila Prabhupada was in his morning walk, walking by the beach. And when Srila Prabhupada was by the beach, the conversation became very philosophical. Because when you see the ocean, mind become very calm, right? Have you noticed? Especially if you see so many surfing people, your mind may not become very calm. But if you go to a beach which is quiet, if you see the waters, unlimited waters, you become a bit sober, calm, quiet. That is from the nature. So Srila Prabhupada asked this question. There's a huge ocean, and practically unlimited water is there in the ocean. But why this small fishes, they live there happily? Why is it so? It is their home? Exactly, it is their shelter. Because that is their shelter, that's all. Since the ocean is a shelter, they live there. And Prabhupada also told, we can learn the depth from the ocean, deep. So if a devotee is deep, then there is not much disturbance. Or even if you see some disturbance, it's not really disturbance. Can you see? The ocean, you may see the waves in the ocean, but ocean is many kilometers deep. So it is only very superficial what you see. It's not affecting the entire ocean. Similarly, a pure devotee may speak, he may show some anxiety, but that is the surface. The depth of their connection to Krishna is unshaken. Whereas for us, we are shaken. The whole body is shaking, right? Even our relationship with Krishna is shaking, whether to chant or not. That is the kind of question that can come to our mind. Or if our mind is disturbed, we cannot even hear what we are chanting. So that is the depth. So this is the living entity. So what are we describing here? We talked about ocean, we talked about shelter, everything because talking about bhakti. So without bhakti, there is no shelter in Krishna. So that's why Aruhya Krishna Param Padam Tatha Padanti Atho Anadrida Yushmadanghraya. So they may think that they are getting elevated, but still they have to come down. And that's why, as we described, this difference is emphasized so much. Very important. Then, on the other side, what is emphasized? Abheda. Non-difference is also emphasized. So what is the significance of non-difference? Why do we say that there is non-difference between us and Krishna? Okay, so then we are part of Krishna. Mama eva amsha, mama eva amsho jivaloka. We are actually part of Krishna. What can we learn from that? When we say we are part of Krishna, it's a very good point. What can we learn? What can we understand from that? We are part of Krishna. Yeah, we should have the qualities that Krishna have. Very good point. And if we have the qualities similar to Krishna, then what does that mean? Yes, so it actually shows, that's a very good direction, because it is showing the intimate connection between the jiva and the Lord. It can be like a child or different kinds of relationship, but in essence, the intimacy is shown. Prabhupada gave the example of an iron rod, putting in the fire. It becomes like fire. So if you want to be with Krishna, you have to be of the same nature as Krishna. Right? If we want to serve Krishna, we have to be of the same nature as Krishna. Otherwise, how can we go to the spiritual world and serve? Like, if you don't have the body, how can you live in the ocean? Similarly, if you want to go to the spiritual world, we need the spiritual body. We have the spiritual body because Krishna has a spiritual body. We are his part and parcel, so we have the spiritual body. And then we can go and serve Krishna in the spiritual world. Or, actually the spiritual body is developing even now. It is there. It is actually manifesting as we are performing bhakti. So we understand that the non-difference is emphasized so that we can have intimate relationship with Krishna. Right? In the spiritual world, we have intimate relationship with Krishna. Devotees are serving Krishna. Devotees are playing with Krishna. Such a strong connection with Krishna. And that's why it is mentioned. So this is the Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. So that is the essential principle. And in this Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva, we can describe all bhakti, we can describe Bhagavad Gita, because without Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva, it's very difficult to understand Bhagavad Gita. Because Krishna presents different aspects. And here, next point that we need to understand is, who is responsible for our plight, for this material body? Who is responsible? Who is responsible for this body? We are responsible. This is a very difficult point for us to accept, to digest. Whatever we have, good or bad, it is because of us. We are in this world because of us. It's not because of anyone else. It's not just because of Krishna. So this is a very important point that we need to accept, because it means we had to take responsibility. Like, there is this example. A child gets some pocket money, okay? The son gets some pocket money. And he goes and buys things which are not really good. Okay, can you see? You have some money, goes to the shop and buy things which are not really good. Okay, so this is a grown-up son. What he buys? He buys some intoxicants. Alcohol, not good. So he goes and buys some alcohol. And then he gets drunk. What happened? And drunk and start fighting. So who comes? If you fight, what happens? Who comes? Corpse comes. The corpse comes. And corpse pick him. And then he is in front of the judge. So the judge asked, why did you do that? He said, I didn't do anything. What he said? I just drank, that's all. What did I do? I just drank and I became intoxicated and I started fighting. It's not because of me. Why? It is because of alcohol. Do you think judge is going to listen to that? No. Then he said, no, I'm not going to accept that. He said, actually, it is true that I bought, but I didn't have any money. Who gave the money? Father gave the money. So you go arrest the father. Correct? Father gave the money. Father didn't give the money, there was no problem. So you go arrest the father. Do you think judge is going to listen to that? No. Judge is not going to listen to that. So who is responsible? If we do something, we are responsible. So this is what it's saying. So this is how it is. Why are we here? Is it because of Krishna? No. Is it because of material energy? No. It is because of us, because we chose. We chose to be here. So that is the point. So we cannot blame anyone, so we have to take responsibility of our spiritual life. In any circumstance, we cannot blame anyone. So this is the point. We have to take responsibility. That's why Prabhupada gives this example in the first canto of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. If you are flying an aeroplane, you can get trained. You can get coaching. And after that, when you are flying, if the flight is taking off, you are responsible. Now you cannot blame the engine, you cannot blame the aircraft, it's your life. You have to take care. Similarly, in spiritual life, we have to take care of ourselves. Ultimately, it is our responsibility. We may get help. We can choose to be in a situation where we get supported. But after that, it's our responsibility. We cannot blame anyone. So that is that is an important point, because there is a tendency sometimes to blame everyone, but we cannot. So that's why everything is orchestrated by the Supreme Lord. Ishara sarva bhutanam Vrndesa Arjuna Trishtadi Brahmayan sarva bhutani yantrarudhani maya. We are situated in a yantra, in a machine. So body is considered like a machine. We are situated in that. And maya, by the material energy, and as directed by Ishvara, the Supreme Lord. But ultimately, Jiva is responsible. So this is the point. And the karma is there. Why? Because Jiva has independence. So since the Jiva has some amount of independence, then we are responsible, and so there is karma. Otherwise there is no karma. What's the point in karma if you are not responsible? And if you don't have some free will, why would we punish by karma? Or why are we held responsible? So ultimately, we are responsible, and that's why there is karma. So Srila Prabhupada makes this point, for we can come to this world or we can go back home, back to Godhead. Both are in our hand. It is the responsibility of the Jiva. And finally here Jiva Goswami says that for materialistic people it is very difficult to understand the Sukshma nature of us, or it is very difficult to understand whom? Us, our real self, the living entity. Even if you tell, they cannot understand. That's why Bhagavad Gita says, Ascharyavat paschyati kachidayanam. Have you heard this verse? Do you know the verse? Ascharyavat paschyati kachidayanam. Ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyaha. Ascharyavat chainam anyashrinoti. Shrutvapyenam vedana chaiva kaschit. So, some people speak about the soul as amazing. Some people look at the soul as amazing, and some people hear about them as amazing, but after hearing everything, some people will not be able to understand. So who cannot understand? Materialistic people can never understand, because it is so difficult. The scientists cannot understand. So Jiva Goswami gives a very interesting point in this regard. We can read about this from the second canto of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. So there, Srila Prabhupada writes this beautiful purport. It's a little complicated purport, but it's interesting. In that, Prabhupada writes that if we are only matter, if we are only matter, and if we have things in our control, then why intelligence is not within our control? Or memory is within our control? Think about this. Assume we are just material bodies, and it's a material system, and sometimes we have the intelligence and sometimes we don't have the intelligence. Is it right? Can we access it all the time as we want? We can't. So, from there we can understand that even though we think that everything belongs to us, even this body belongs to us, but we don't have any control over our own intelligence. And it is as if someone is giving us the intelligence. We know some living entities. In yesterday's class, Prabhupada was talking about the calves, right? Calves get up when? In a few minutes maybe. In a few minutes they get up and they go to the udder, they can drink the milk. Same with a kangaroo, right? Get out from the pouch and, get out and then start, go to the mother. Jump to the pouch, or how does it work? Yeah? Yeah. So how is it possible? Where is this intelligence coming from? Even for us, the intelligence is given. And sometimes we have and sometimes we don't have. Many, here talking about the scientists, many scientists, they tell how they discovered something or how they invented something. It was not just thinking and thinking and thinking and they got it. How that happened? It was as if somebody gave them. Which all of a sudden it just manifested. So where is it coming from? That's the question. So this intelligence is being awarded. So if someone can see that this intelligence is not within our control and it's been awarded, that makes one to question. There must be something beyond just this material body, and there must be someone in control. And then we can see, okay, there is this Lord. Can you see? So if someone is open to this idea, then one can see that at least there is something beyond this material self. And that is a very good point to start Krishna consciousness. We see when we speak to new people, we see that those who can accept that there is something beyond this material body, great. Because from there, we can build the spiritual structure to it. So that is the foundation. If one has that at least a benefit of doubt, that's really good. So in preaching, what we are trying to do is, we are trying to make them think and make them understand first that there is something beyond this body. We may question them, we may show some kind of evidences about reincarnation, or we may show a few things. Why? To make them think and to make them realize that first there is something beyond this body. And if that is there, then we can build the whole spiritual structure on that foundation. And those who are atheistic, no, they will say, no, there is nothing beyond matter and there is nothing beyond chemicals. So in the initial preaching is we try to shake that. One with logic and reasoning or some other evidences which are supportive, plus giving them the association, making them hear the holy name, giving them prasadam, nice dealings with the devotees. In that way, they are building their bhakti sukruti. Then they can accept, okay, it makes sense. I had one person was telling, he was totally atheistic. He was going to Crossways, eating day after day, year after year. After many years, he started reading a small book, and then he started accepting, okay, there is a soul, there is God. This is how it works. So building that sukruti, it can take lifetimes, not necessarily one lifetime. We are in the process, we are trying to help them. So it's just a process that for some people it is fast in this lifetime because they have already accrued the spiritual credit. Others haven't. So we are helping them to accrue spiritual credit, and then they will be able to accept. So that is the process of preaching. So preaching is very steady, and it can take time. We cannot expect any result immediately. Some may get immediate results, some may not. But still, we act to please Krishna, to please Prabhupada, to please Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Like that. So this verse is very important because this brings out the point of difference and non-difference between the soul and the super soul, and emphasizes very clearly the responsibility of the living entity. And I'll make a final point because in a couple of days, Radhashtami is coming. So here we have a great opportunity to be serious in Krishna consciousness, to take part in this festival, to pray for the mercy of Srimati Radharani. So Radharani is very, very compassionate. And she is actually looking at the living entities with her merciful glance. And somehow or other, she's desiring that all living entities come back home, back to Godhead. Even in Bhagavatam, the Gopa Kumar, you might have heard a little bit about Bhagavatam, right? It's the story of Gopa Kumar. Gopa Kumar was not going back home, back to Godhead. He was taking so many lifetimes. So when he reached Vaikuntha, the Lord of Vaikuntha made a point. He said, I was thinking, this lifetime you will come back. But you didn't. The other lifetime I was looking at you, you went to the spiritual circle, you started chanting. But in between, you blooped. Next lifetime, you got initiated, you were practicing, but still you didn't made it. Next lifetime, even you got Brahmin initiation and you went further, but still you didn't make it. And the other lifetime is just a story. So it is going like that. He said, finally you came. So it is mentioned, ultimately he doesn't belong to Vaikuntha, he belongs to Golok Vrindavan. It's mentioned that this Jiva, who is Gopkumar, his original name was Swarup, he is related to Srimati Radharani. He is a relative of Radharani. So ultimately, Radharani wanted him to come back. So Radharani wanted him to come back. So it's mentioned the Lord himself assumed the form of his guru as a Brahmana, as we can read, and came and gave shelter to Gopakumar and cultivated him. And whenever he had trouble, the guru would go and visit him. That is Chakudan Diloye Janme Janme. Prabhu said, whenever you want, the guru or guru's representative will come and help us to go further. So that is coming from Srimati Radharani. So ultimately, all the spiritual masters are representatives of Srimati Radharani or Lord Nityananda Prabhu. They can offer us to Krishna. So it's a great opportunity for all of us. So with this note, I will stop and see if there are any questions or comments. Any question or any comment? Yes, Sivya. Hare Krishna.
You said that if we don't understand the superiority of the Lord, we can fall down. But then that makes it harder for us to develop a relationship with Him when we don't understand, love Him. So how can we understand it?
Okay, the question is, if we don't understand the superiority or the supreme position of the Lord, we will fall down. Or we cannot, there is no bhakti then. Then understanding the opulence and the supreme position of the Lord, how can you develop love for Him as a friend or parent or whatever? It's a good question. It's a very good question. Srila Prabhupada said that our worship of the deity is in the mood of Dasya, in the mood of worshipping who and who? In Dasya, who do we worship? Lakshmi and Narayan. So the mood of worship of deity is in the form of Lakshmi Narayan. So we cannot go to the deity Radha Vallabha. Today I will go and pat on the shoulder of Radha Vallabha. Can we do that? No. Can we just go and embrace Radha Vallabha just like that? No, we cannot do that. How do we do? Everything according to Vidhi, according to the rules and regulations. Why? Because that's how the devotees worship Lakshmi Narayan in Vaikuntha with awe and reverence. So there is a reverential worship that we adopt to. Why? We are not qualified for other intimate worship at this point. So in Goloka Vrindavan, it doesn't work like this. Golagonda and Krishna's friend, they go pat on him. They even climb on top of Krishna, right? And Krishna has to carry them. And if we climb on top of the deity, means it's an offense, we will fall down, right? So now we are working on our dasya. It's like, all the devotees were going and asking Srila Prabhupada, what's the meaning of my name? What is the meaning of my name? After some time, Prabhupada said, do you understand the meaning of the last part of your name? What is that? Dasa or Dasi. If you understand that, then you can come back to Godhead. So we had to understand we are the servants. So here in the deity worship, first understand we are the Dasa. Then other things will be revealed. Dasya is the basic. What is the next? Sakhya, then Valsalya, then Madhurya. So Dasya is the common ingredient of all rasas. So Dasya, one is a conjugal lover of Krishna as a servant. One is a parent of Krishna as a servant. One is a friend of Krishna as a servant. So servitorship is the basic, and that's the most difficult for us. That's the most difficult for us because we think we are master. So that's why here the term Ishvara is used. Here Ishvara is not used to describe the Supreme Lord. No. Here Ishvara is described to, given to describe us living entity. Ishvara, Prabhu, these terms are used here. Specifically, Prabhu is used. Prabhu, the master, is used to describe us because there Prabhu is used because we have the free will. But generally we think that we are Prabhu. We can address others as Prabhu, that is the right thing to do. But we are not really Prabhu, we are only servant. So you understand? So first realize Dasya and we worship according to Dasya, and then slowly we will understand what is our finer rasas. So we had to start with Dasya. So we do service. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, yes, you said that the intelligence is also provided by Krishna.
Ah.
So when we are doing something wrong or not favorable to us, then is it our...
What is that? Can you come again?
If we take some decision that is not good for us,
Uh-huh.
at that point, is that, how does that work? Like, that point also intelligence should be provided, that you should not do this, or is it that free will that...
Okay. So the question is, when we make wrong decision, we are not getting the right intelligence, right? So, okay, so we had to be provided the right intelligence. The question is, are we ready to accept the right intelligence? Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tuam yena mam upayantite. Krishna will give the right intelligence. For whom? Huh? Who is ready? Bhajatam, one who is serving. Satata, yuktanam, always serving him. For them, Krishna gives the intelligence, they will accept and they will do it. What kind of intelligence? To come back to Godhead. Otherwise, we get the intelligence. What kind of intelligence we may get? We get the intelligence according to our karma. But Lord has to give, then we get it. So why we are not getting the right intelligence? Because we don't want. According to karmic patterns, we have a certain desires and we get the intelligence accordingly. So again, the responsibility is on us. So if you want Krishna's intelligence, we have a simple system. Go to senior devotees, take guidance. So at least bhakti part will be going okay. Material things can go up and down because we have to tolerate, we can't do much about it. And we have guidance from Krishna, guidance from Bhagavatam. Okay. Jai. Granthara Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai.